Well, hello from Darwin. Big Hat and I flew up here on Saturday to join our good friend Greg Shepherd, who drove up here from Brisbane for the V8 supercars. So we're about to start an adventure, a road trip back to Brisbane. So it's going to be about 7 or 8 days and take it pretty easy. We're heading off from Darwin today, overnighting at Daly Waters, then down to Tennant Creek, and then left turn and across into Queensland, Mount Isa, Cloncurry, Longreach, and we'll see what happens from there on. Anyway, fantastic. A road trip in a BMW. Who could ask for more?
One of the attractions about a big road trip in the Northern Territory is the higher than Australian standard speed limit on the open roads. It used to be unrestricted, but now the maximum is 130 kilometres per hour. Still, at that speed, it's easy to chew up the miles. If you ever get to Adelaide River, make sure you check out the War Cemetery. During the Second World War, Adelaide River was the headquarters of a large military base, and the War Cemetery was created especially for the burial of servicemen and women who died in this part of Australia. There is also a moving memorial to the staff of the Darwin Post Office who were killed during the first Japanese air raid on the 19th of February 1942. My overnight accommodation in Daly Waters was a donga. What is a donga?
So, that's where Greg is. Come for a walk with me.
A donga is a demountable cabin. It is used widely in the Outback here in Australia for cheap, easy accommodation.
But wait, there's more. An ensuite. Day 2, road trip from Darwin to Brisbane. We're at Daly Waters and we've overnighted, and we're at, we stayed at the Highway Motor Inn. Interesting night, interesting morning, interesting accommodation. It's all very exciting. Anyway, we're about to hit the road from Daly Waters to head down to Tennant Creek. Here we go. Turbines to speed, walk factor 1. Well, tonight's going to be a better night. Here we are, room 13. Unlucky for some, but yahoo.
Zero dark 30. Day 3 was going to be the longest day on our trip, about 780 kilometres from Tennant Creek in the Northern Territory to Cloncurry in Queensland. As we left before dawn, we kept all of our eyes out for kangaroos as the sun came up. Oh dear. Unfortunately, my windscreen curse has joined us on this trip. So it looks like we'll be visiting my friends back in Brisbane at Windscreens O'Brien's.
I think I hear the sounds of them and people talking seem to recall by minute movement and songs they fall.
It was a reasonably straightforward run towards the Queensland border at Camberwell.
Where else but Queensland? We're home. Well, sort of.
In a room with silent hearty face, a certain texture, that certain smell brings home the heavy day, brings home the nighttime swell. Out on the patio we sit, and the humidity we breathe. We watch the lightning crack over cane fields and laugh and think this is Australia. The block is awkward, it faces west, long diagonals and sloping too.
In a couple of hours, we made it to Mount Isa. Then it was a short run on to our destination for the night, the Gidgee Inn Motel at Cloncurry.
Brings forth the nighttime heat. Out on the patio we sit, and the humidity.
You know, sometimes you should really take notice of road signs. Stay tuned.
And think that this is Australia.
Okay. Here's the next part of the adventure. We've just got a warning on the car, but for losing air in a tyre.
Because modern day BMWs don't come with a spare tyre, Greg prepared for this big road trip by buying a spare wheel, a spare tyre, a hydraulic jack, a couple of rattle guns, a torque wrench, various tools and some gloves, but didn't think he'd ever need to use them.
So what were you saying about carrying all these spares around for 5 years and not using them?
When we got the wheel off, we realised that the car was badly out of alignment and it had been running on the inside edge for many kilometres at high speed with a lot of weight in the boot.
Okay, well, like any good Boy Scout, we're prepared. But unfortunately, it seems that we may be in trouble because the other rear tyre is showing extreme signs of the same failure on the inside edge of the tread. So we now need to formulate a plan as to what we're going to do. So stay tuned.
So it turned out that the plan was to backtrack 15 kilometres to the small town of Kainoona, which had mobile service. We parked outside the Blue Heeler Hotel and started ringing around for help.
Yes, how can I assist you? Could you please describe the problem you're having with your vehicle?
Our first call was to BMW Roadside Assistance, and after explaining to them our situation and helping them find Kainoona on the map, they said they would try to get a tow truck to us within 60 to 90 minutes. I must say I was dubious.
Do you know if the vehicle can be driven onto the tow truck or is it not drivable?
That's drivable.
But I had to eat my words when an RACQ tow truck drove past us in less than an hour. He didn't stop, and he had a vehicle on the back of his truck.
Yeah, heading off to Mount Isa to take a load up there. Had a missed call on my phone, pulled up and had a squeeze. There was people breaking down at Queensland at 10-15 k's behind me, so I went back and seen two fellas there, there's a flat tyre on their Beamer. Got authority from the right people, loaded them up and took them from Queensland to Longreach, about a 400k one-way trip, sorry.
So the adventure continues. 343 kilometres to Longreach. This isn't a view that I expected to see coming from Darwin to Brisbane.
Speed limit's only 110 here too. Big video.
This stop, Winton. We've come about 150 kilometres from where we picked up at Kainoona, and we'll be heading off to Longreach in a minute.
Well, I saw how to grind, but I'm out on the road again. I'm on the road again. Well, I'm so tired of grind, but I'm out on the road again. I'm on the road again. I ain't got no woman just to call my special friend. You know, the first time I traveled out in the rain and snow, in the rain and snow. You know, the first time I traveled out in the rain and snow, in the rain and snow.
If you're wondering, it is much more comfortable in the passenger seat of a BMW 850 than on an unsuspended bench seat in the back of a tow truck.
So we've lost the sun, and we're about 40 k's out of Longreach now. So, not long. We did manage to overtake one vehicle, so we're still built for speed.
This was a major part of our adventure, and I cannot thank RACQ and Peter from Central Motors Winton enough. It was a great result, and Greg and I still had time for a steak and a beer at the Longreach RSL.
'Cause it's soon one morning, down the road I'm gone.
Fortunately, the next day we had a planned lay day in Longreach, so it didn't worry us too much to having to wait until 3 p.m. for new tyres to arrive and be fitted. It was scary though, looking at the tyres that came off the car.
So, here we go. Obviously, this wasn't going to last for too much longer, coming down the road. And I think this was the one that let go.
In the middle of this road leaves nothing in between.
That night we had a break from the road trip by joining the Smithy's Outback cruise on the Coolabah line to Thompson River, followed by a camp oven themed dinner, live entertainment, and the evening was topped off with damper and golden syrup.
In the middle of this road leaves nothing in between. With headlights and tangles and whispers of a dream. Hardly the money, hardly the fame.
Day 6 and we're heading to Charleville.
Time is 5 hours and 45 minutes.
As we left town, we drove past the Qantas Founders Museum, built to preserve and display some iconic aircraft such as a 747, a DC-3, a Boeing 707, and a Super Constellation. With only 500 kilometres to drive today, we're going to pass through Barcaldine, Tambo, Blackall and Augathella on our way to Charleville. We're seeing a lot more civilization now, and we're heading through some cattle country, but there's still lots and lots and lots of caravans. We arrived quite early in the afternoon at our motel, the Mulga Country Inn, so we relaxed, had a couple of beers, a nice meal and a good night's sleep. Day 7 will be another easy run of 500 kilometres to Dalby, where we're going to catch up with another BMW Club Queensland member, Graham Miller. Today's route sounds a bit like the song I've Been Everywhere, Man. On our way to Dalby, we'll go through Somaruva, Morven but not Augathella, Mungalala, Mitchell, Muckadilla, Roma, Wallumbilla, Dulacca, Miles and Chinchilla. Of travels we've had our share, man. We've been everywhere. As well as catching up with Graham Miller, another highlight of the trip was our stay at the Country Pathfinder Motor Inn. Fantastic hospitality, topped off with an espresso coffee machine and a typical country breakfast. The last day of our trip was an easy run from Dalby through to Toowoomba and down home to Brisbane. It was an excellent adventure. We met lots of interesting people and I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Arriving at your destination.
Thanks for being a great travel buddy, Greg, and wow, what a magnificent car. It's even better now it's clean.